Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be making a low poly car in Blender. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So we're just starting with the cube, the default cube that you see in Blender. And we're going to turn this into a car. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure your cube is selected. We know because it has this mouse and it's completely outlined in orange. So we know it's selected. Then we're going to scale it down to kind of squish it. So I'm going to show you two ways to do that. The first is going to be up here on this toolbar, and the second is going to be the shortcut. Right here on the left, you can see our different tools. So we have move, rotate, scale, transform. I'm going to hit scale. You can see we have each of these different axes that you can move it on. So if I want to make it longer, I can drag on the green axis. If I want to squish it down, I can drag it on the red axis. However you want to do that, just to squish it down to make the bottom part of a car. The shortcut is just make sure you're selected. So I'm going to go back to that select tool. I know I'm selected because I've got that orange outline, and I'm just going to hit S. Now you might notice the S just moves the whole thing on all axes. If you want to move it on a specific axis, just hold down S and hit the other key. You actually don't even have to hold down S once you hit it, but right now I'm hitting Z, and you can see that my shape is starting to move on that Z axis. To get it to not, you just click and then it's done. Let's say I want to make it a little bit longer. Again, I can do S, and then if I want to move it on that green or that Y axis, I just hit Y and I can move it around on there. So that's the long way and the shortcut. Might make it just a little bit bigger. Okay, that looks like a pretty good car to me. I don't know much about cars, but it looks good. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a cab in this car. So someone has to be able to sit in it in this virtual world. So you can see here that I'm in object mode right up here because I've got object mode, view, select, add, and object. I want to be in edit mode. So we're going to be doing most of this car in between edit mode and object mode. Edit mode, you might notice once you open it up, you get a couple more toolbars. This one up top, we have these three, which we visited before. This one, which controls our vertices or our corners. This one, which selects the edges. You can see it's highlighting white. And this one, which selects the different faces. So you get that toolbar, and then you also get this editing toolbar down here, which really lets you manipulate the shapes. So let's manipulate some shapes. I'm going to go back to that general select tool, and I'm going to use what's called a loop cut. That's essentially just going to divide my shape for me and essentially cut it without really cutting it. So I'm going to just click on that. And without even clicking down, I'm just hovering over. You can see I'm starting to see these yellow rectangles inside. This is just where it's cut in half, and it's where where Blender is proposing I can put these loop cuts. I want to use this one that's on the x-axis right here because I think that'll make a nice cab. Once you click on it, if you hold down your mouse, you can move it forward and back. So you can really have some fun with this and really create whatever you want. This is going to be on the left side is going to be the hood of our car, the front of our car. If you want a really short hood, maybe have a Fiat, maybe you want to make a little short hood. If you want a really long hood, maybe you want like a Porsche, you could move it further back. I'm going to put mine somewhere in the middle, but just envision the front being the hood and the back being the cab. So I'll make mine about here. So right now, you can see I've lifted up my mouse, so you can still see this orange little slice. And go back to this select tool. And I'm going to visit these three icons up here. So this first one, again, corners. Second one, edges. Third is face. I want the face one. So I clicked on face and I clicked on what's going to be the cab of my car. So to bring this cab up, we're going to use the Extrude tool, which we've used before. To use the Extrude tool, you want to make sure you're on what you want extruded. So again, I'm only on this second half because I used that loop cut tool. I made sure I was on the face select. And then I clicked on the top of what that cab is going to be. Once I'm selected, I'm just going to hit E. And you can see it starting to extrude. I'm moving it up and down on this Z axis. If it's starting to extrude somewhere else, you can either hit Z, Y, or X, whatever axis you want, but the Z will bring it straight up. I think this looks pretty good to me. That looks like a pretty good cab. And you can see now it's already starting to look like a car. We've got our little hood. We've got our top, we've got our little windshield. We're starting to look like a very basic car. Okay, so let's add a trunk. We're gonna do it the same way we added our cab, but we have to rotate around so we can see the backside. Gonna again show you a couple ways again. The first is you can use this tool right here to really manipulate around. So you can click on the middle in between any of these and really drag around. Another thing you can do is if you have a mouse, you can just click on that center and move it around that way. I kind of like the center method because it's super easy, but if you don't have a mouse, if you're using like a trackpad on a laptop, that works just fine. So same as I did before, I'm going to make sure I want my the face select mode selected. I'm going to click on the face I want extruded. In this case, it's going to be this little bottom part for a trunk. And I'm just going to hit E to extrude. Kind of hard to see how far I'm extruding, so you might need to rotate back. And that looks good enough for me. So at this point, we've got a very basic car shape. I'm going to show you an optional step. I think it makes it look much better and it's pretty simple, but then after that, we're going to add the wheels. The step I'm going to show you just kind of pinches that top in, makes it look a little bit more realistic. To do that, you just click on that top, because remember, I'm still on that face select tool. So I'm only selecting this face. And then I'm going to scale it down. So you can either use the S key on your keyboard, or you can use this keyboard on the left and do scale from there. There you go. If you just pinch it a little bit on that Y axis, you can see it starts to come in a little and just look slightly more realistic. So that's the super basic how we get a car shape. Let's add some wheels. So we've done all of this in edit mode. I'm going to hop on over back into object mode. So again, this part's important to go from edit mode to object mode. Once we're there, we need to add some new shapes. We need to add some cylinders so we can shrink those down and stick them on to look like wheels. Again, how do we add a new object? How do we add a mesh? The long way is to go to up here, this toolbar, object mode, view, select, add object. We're going to go to add mesh. and cylinder. So that's the long way to go on screen. The shortcut is Shift A, or yep, Shift A, mesh, cylinder. Now let's put it in the middle of our car. We don't need it in the middle of the car. Going to make sure I'm on my select tool because it doesn't need to be on scale anymore. And I'm going to just hit G to move it. You could also move it using this right here. Again, that lets you move it on the different axes, or anywhere in between, but I'm just going to use G and then click to deselect. So I need to manipulate this shape a little bit. The first thing I need to do is I need to rotate it. So it kind of looks like a wheel, and I need to shrink it down so it's not a really long wheel. So how do I do that? Again, I can show you the shortcuts and the long ways, and whatever works best for you is totally fine. To rotate it, you can either click this rotate tool, drag the axis that you want it to be rotated on, and that's one way. It's funny when you move around, sometimes it's not where you think it was. Another way you can do that is, again, to make sure you're selected. I know I'm selected because I have that orange outline, and I can just hit the R button and that rotates it. If you want it rotated on a specific axis, you can hit Y, X, or Z, whatever works for you. But I'm actually going to move this because this is a little bit somewhere different than where I thought it was. Okay, and sometimes it is kind of nice to do the long ways if you're just starting off, because then it kind of lets you see it a little bit better. Okay, so there we go. It's a little bit long. I can shorten it just by scaling. So S, or click here and you can shorten it that way. To move it, again, you can either just use G or any of the controls on the left. Don't move the car, move the wheel. And you can play around with this. You can move it, see what works best for you. But that's essentially how we add one wheel. And since I've done all that work on that one beautiful wheel, I'm just going to go the easy route. I'm going to right click and I'm going to duplicate object. Once I move my mouse, I can see that the duplicated object is already linked to it. And I just kind of rotate or hover where I want it and click. Now we can see, now I have two wheels. I can do that again. I can duplicate object. So right click, duplicate. You can also copy and paste whatever works for you. And to move, I'm just using that center mouse button, but you can also use this controller up here. To move it, I'm just using G. Oh, why did it get so big? Okay, I was on the wrong axis, that's fine. Or you can use this right here to really play around with it. See, and sometimes it's not exactly where you think it is, which is always very interesting. I'm going to move that up. I'm going to move that over. Move that back. There we go. We're starting to get where we need to be, but sometimes you think you're somewhere and you're really not. Okay, so really feel free to play around with this. Sometimes you can't get it just right. There we go. Put that on. Perfect. And I can just duplicate this. We can also copy object and paste object. Again, G to move, and then just put that there. Perfect. Well, maybe not. There we go. Perfect. So if you want to add color, you can. I'm not going to walk you through that because we already walked on how to add color and it's not required for this project, but some of you are really good at it. So feel free to add color if you like, but in short, that's the simple how we create a low poly car. Pretty cool.